Pour one out ever so slightly. I'll have to clean that up later. For the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team in 2024-2025, because it is over. A crown tournament ensuing. There's a lot to get into revolving that. Will the Cincinnati Bearcats play in the thing? It sounds like it's mandatory. So maybe not the last time we've seen this installment, but in terms of talking about them seriously, this is it, as the Iowa State Cyclones take down the Bearcats 76-56. Not 66, 56. So the way that the season went, the Cats kind of being a fraudulent offensive team, that continues until the last day of the season as they score 56 points in the game, 24 in the first half. Chuck Walter, Houdini with you. We go live, win or losses, after every single game. And when the games are played during work hours, we go live later on in the evening. When recruits commit, we're going to go live. And when the Cats are inevitably playing in the crown, we will at the very least do an update show. But this is it in terms of the reaction shows to a game this season. So let's just start there, man. Quick thoughts on Iowa State. I don't want to spend a majority of the show talking about this team as we know it, because quite frankly, the best thing to happen is that it's over.
I'm so glad the season's over, man. I really am.
I mean, don't pour one out. Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, credit to us, Chuck, for, like you mentioned, we did a live show every game, you know, with the games being at 12:30 on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. We're doing them semi-late, knee house. We've had, you know, Lily does it. We've had guys doing the shows after every game, and this has been a roller coaster of a season, man. You really didn't know what you're going to expect. They looked fantastic. They were playing Oklahoma State, though, so, like, I didn't read into that at all. Then you go and play Iowa State, and you certainly didn't want to be in a position where you had to win 5 games in 5 days, because this team can't do it. And we saw it, and it was a roller coaster of a season. You mentioned the Son of Beast. This felt more like a parish festival where there was like a 17-year-old that was strapping into the ride that looked like he may have taken hallucinogens before. And halfway through the ride, you thought maybe this thing's going to shut down and I'm going to die on this thing. That's what this season felt like. So cheers to it being over. I thought they gave some fight tonight, or today, I should say. They fought, they battled, but Iowa State's the better team.
It's a shocker that we don't hear more about those carnival incidents on the local news. I mean, with the rides they're coming out with and the fact that you're able to, you know, throw darts into balloons, you don't hear many horror stories about those carnivals, but they're an accident waiting to happen. Those rims also are fraudulent. Even Steph Curry said that when I interviewed him. He said, you know, those carnival rims, man, you can't trust them. So anyways, enough of the carnivals. Back to the game. UC cut the deficit to 43-40 with 14-20 in the game. Iowa State not only pulled away, but dominated the game from there. UC did force Iowa State into 17 turnovers. The defense pretty good. Unfortunately, the interior defense was never good all season. We've had the Aziz debate all season long. And here's the easiest way to put it. Aziz wasn't good enough. Page wasn't near good enough. So you had to play Aziz, because with Aziz not on the floor, you still weren't good enough. In fact, you were worse defensively with him off the floor. That's just the situation that we were in. The story of the season was 8 guys played in the game today. You go up and down the roster, 8 guys played. It was Betsy playing 1 minute. So take away Tyler Betsy, 7 guys played. And I saw a tweet that said, get Dan out of the game now. I mean, what are you going to do? You look up and down the bench. That's your first issue with this team. 7 guys played in a must-win game. Lukosius and Skillings, say what you want about them. They each had 8. Jizzle James led the way with 17 on a non-efficient 6 of 20 shooting. But what can he do? Josh Reed, once again, double figures with 10. Day-Day Thomas had 9. And Dylan Mitchell did not back up his 18-15 performance. He had 2 points and 5 rebounds. But let's start there, man, because that was something we thought Wes Miller did a good job of in the offseason, was evaluating talent and bringing in the right core to supplement what the Cats had working for them the season prior. And it turned out to be the most false thing we have ever heard. I mean, every single player minus Dylan Mitchell in the game today was a product of last year's team. Like, the additions this year truly did nothing. It was forget a home run that we were saying about Wes before the season started. It was an absolute disaster class in the portal from Wes Miller.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Mitchell was the only contributor that wasn't here last season, truly. And he's going to have to do, we were talking about Aziz, the writing's on the wall. Arrington Page is gone. He's not playing at all in a game where we could not defend the rim to save our lives. Their bigs were absolutely dominating us, getting layup after layup. Still didn't play a second. They still played a guy like Seamas 30 minutes who hasn't been able to, shoot the ball into the ocean over the last month or two. So the writing's on the wall there. He's going to have to go crazy. And I'm talking multiple bigs in the portal. You can't just rely on McKinley after his ACL repairs that he's going to be some superstar. He's going to be in his first collegiate basketball games next season if he does come back. They're going to have to do a ton of work, man. And the nice thing is, though, it's 2025. You can totally flip this thing, but he's probably going to look like me by the end of this offseason. He's going to be stressed as hell. He's got to rely strictly on the portal at this point. You don't want to be in this position.
The position that they're in is a 0% chance of the NCAA tournament. Don't even bother. We're talking about the crown. Apparently, you need 7 scholarship players. It's in 19 days is the crown tournament. The Cats apparently are obligated to play per the TV contracts. So with that being said, with the portal opening, is UC going to have 7 players to compete? And why are we even doing this crown? We didn't need more postseason tournaments. It's such a money grab. Here's the thing. I'm one of the biggest diehard Cats fans out there. You are too. How many fucks do you give about this tournament?
I think it's going to be 0 total fucks, Chuck.
0 fucks given.
This is bad. College basketball is totally different. I mean, even this isn't your dad's, college basketball anymore. Nobody gives a single shit. And they didn't really care even 20 years ago, but especially now. Like, we want to get into next season. Maybe if you're a mid-major team, you like taking this, but the crown is designed to have the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10, the two top teams that don't make the tournament. Like,
teams whose fan bases are pissed. Teams whose fan bases are pissed. Like, we're not getting behind it.
It's so stupid. I mean, if they want to make it fun, they should have open tryouts. We should be able to go down there, get some reps in, see if they can bring in some of the fan bases to play each other. That'd probably be more watchable if they just had the fan bases go at it on the crown tournament versus the actual players. These guys don't want to play. You kidding me?
Walter kicking it down to Brindle in the post. Who wouldn't want to see that, man? Who would not want to see that?
I'd pay for that.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, what's next? Because we've beaten a dead horse on the season. The game today was just proof in the pudding that this team was not good enough. I don't think they were 20 points worse than Iowa State. They just ran out of gas. I just told you about the depth. So what's next? Because a lot of folks out there are saying you burn this thing to the ground. You don't bring a single player back. It's finished. You completely attack the portal, and that is that. I go up and down the roster, and I see players that provide value. One of them being Jizzle James. Another one being, sue me, Dan Skillings. If you can get him into the right position where his job is just to go get rebounds and not try to create on the offensive end. I like Dylan Mitchell as long as you don't have a center that literally can't put the ball in the basket. Bandego shot it one time today. One time. And it wasn't from a post move. It was a lob. So it's like he gave you absolutely nothing. And the fact that Arrington Page wasn't able to give you anything come March and really all season long was one of the biggest glaring weaknesses. So let's start there. It depends on how many bigs and which bigs you bring in that really decides what happens next in terms of roster construction. The issue is you have to kind of figure out your own roster before you go after the other pieces. So you kind of have to rely on who you think can add value if you get the contributors you need. And quite frankly, the story of the offseason is going to be balance. This team needs to be better balanced. They have to have offensive and defensive two-way players mixed in. They have to have real shooters that can shoot the basketball and can create their own shots. That is crucial. And then, from there, I guess you decide where you go, but you have plenty of scholarships that you're going to fill. Betsy played 1 minute. I don't see any scenario where he'd want to come back. If he does, he'd be welcomed. Most of these guys would be welcomed. You just wonder what their roles would look like and how much this thing truly has to change. Are they bring a nucleus of this team back and bring in 2 very solid centers and a ball dominant scoring guy to complement Abayev? Or like, to you, if you're GM of this team, I give you that tag, Houdini, where are you going with this offseason?
You can't bring a core back of this team. There's something wrong with the makeup, the character of the players, just the mentality, I should say, not really the character. There's something wrong. They went 18-15, 7-13 in the Big 12. You cannot bring a core of these guys back. You got to make changes, whether that be it's really going to come down to, hey, who wants to come back first?
Do you really think you're going to find a better point guard than Jizzle James in the portal? Like if that's your biggest glaring issue, like we need to replace Jizzle James with a point guard. Like, do you think anyone with the offense that the Bearcats were running out there and the spacing that they had on the floor could have done that much better of a job than Jizzle or Day Day?
The issue I have is if you bring Day Day and Jizzle back, and they are ball dominant, they shoot very difficult shots. We saw it again. I mean, I know Jizzle's trying to put the team on his back, 6 of 20. He's done this multiple games. I know he's one of the few guys that can create on his own offense on this team. But the way he can't shoot the three ball well, under 30%. He's not a great facilitator. He's just so ball dominant. It's not really about, are you going to get a more talented guy? Because I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe a guy that fits a little bit better and is a pass-first point guard. Because I don't think Jizzle James is a true point guard. So that's what worries me, bringing a guy like that back. And, of course, the money is going to have a huge part in this. We heard, Travis and Jason Kelsey were throwing a bag at Jizzle James on their podcast. Maybe Chatterbox Bearcats will have to pitch into this NIL fund. I'm not sure we can match what they're doing. But you got to change something at the core of this team. And it's so difficult because you don't know who you're going to get in the portal. There's no sure thing. I mean, a lot of these guys we have on the roster now were, plan B and C. So it's you don't like to be in this position. I wish we could bring this core back, but if Jizzle James were to go, I don't think it's the worst thing that happened. Of course, you have to get a massive haul, though, in order to replace that offense that he provided. But when you're shooting 6 of 20 and a ton of mid-range jumpers, not shooting the three ball well, and you're not a great facilitator, I think you can do better with maybe a few different guys.
This is how college basketball's changed, because I brought this up earlier in our group text, man. I was like, Jizzle's a sophomore. Think about sophomores in years past, like Deion Dixon, who had a great career at Cincinnati. His sophomore year, Jaquan Parker, his sophomore year, like these guys didn't do anything. Jizzle James has shown that he's like a very good all-conference type of player at some point in his future. And you're willing to just say, hey, let him go. But it comes down to NIL, to financials. How are you going to balance out the roster? It's completely different than it used to be. You have to be smart about the resources that you have. That's where it gets a little bit murky. And that is where I say you have a ton of scholarships to use here. I mean, CJ Fredericks is open up naturally. Simas Lukosius opening up. You have Aziz's scholarship opening up. Let's say Arrington Page opening up. There's 4 right there. That's 4 different players you can bring in that if you strike gold in a non-NIL era on 4 scholarship transfer players. Now, in the past, they'd have to sit out a year. But this team can work, right? Some of these players that you have can work. You have to look at them individually. That is why it's so nuanced. That is why we are sitting here saying, like, who the hell truly do we want back?
I mean,
how do we change the makeup of this team?
Yeah, if Jizzle James wants to be back, you probably have to make it work because his ceiling is too high. Like we've seen games where he has just put up 30 points and he has been unstoppable. And you're right, he's only a sophomore. He's the only guy that was even mentioned in all Big 12 conversation, an honorable mention. And first off, when there's 35 selections, you better get one guy on the damn roster of the all Big 12 teams if you want to be good. So, yeah, if Jizzle James wants to come back, but it comes down to NIL, how can you deploy these funds? Because this style of offense clearly is not going to work. Where you get 2 smaller guards being ball dominant, you got to get legit wing players that can put the ball in the basket from deep, like a Landers Nolly. I know we talked about him last show. Something like that. You need some legit bigger guys that can score the rock, and it's not all those mid-range contested jump shots. Because Dylan Mitchell has not been proven, in that small ball 5 or that 4-man spot to be able to create his own offense. I mean, 1 of 3, he was, forgettable for almost this entire game. And I know he had a huge one against Oklahoma State, but you can't rely on him. You just can't.
No, and that's where, again, I've kind of shouted this until I'm purple in the face. But a Mitchell, a Jizzle, a Betsy, anyone like that, any given year, you're willing to give them a scholarship and you want them coming back. You want them to be a part of the team. The issue is now you're paying them to be a big part of the team. Like I'm sure Dylan Mitchell is making up there with anyone in the Big 12 money wise, and he just did not perform like it. So if that's the metric you're looking at, yes, you absolutely have to find and replace. But when you don't take that into consideration, it's like he's long, he's good depth at the very least, but former McDonald's All-Americans usually aren't lumped in with depth. So we're going to have to see how everything goes, man. In terms of running down the roster right now, who are you have to have them back? Because my answer is absolutely no one. Literally absolutely no one. That's what happens when you go 18 and 15. In the past, it's different because if you get rid of absolutely everyone, you're legit going to have a Mick Cronin 2007 team where it's a bunch of junior college players. Transfer rule, NIL, you flip this thing completely. We're looking at it a different way. How would you make up this roster knowing what we know about Wes's supposed identity, which I would think based on the way he built this thing is to be big, fast, good defensively, good dunking and shot blocking team. How would you mold it?
The answer to your question on who you need to bring back, I think it's absolutely no one. I really do. I don't think you need to bring back anybody on this roster.
Sad state of affairs that the coach, the one that we think doesn't need to be brought back, is the one that is guaranteed a role on this year's team for his 5th year. Like literally, he says like basically to us, because he's talking to the media, he says, "You come at me, you don't come at my players. Fine, we'll come at you. We won't come at your players. You've done a terrible job. You've done a really bad job at the University of Cincinnati. This has been a place where coaches come and win. We've seen it time and time again. And he's come in and he has lost. He has lost emphatically. At the press conference today, he said he's proud of his team's effort and the way that they fought. Like, what team is what we want to know? Is he actually going to run this thing back? Because all we hear is rumors. You know, we see the Twitter guys saying this guy's gone and he's staying and XYZ. We don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen until things actually start happening. That's where I'm so confused, man. It's such a weird spot to be in where you're going into year 5 of a tenure. The guy has 0 success and he's going to have to gut the entire thing. And you're just okay with it. The fan base isn't. We know better than that, but we don't have any choice here unless we legit get the chatterheads with the picket signs and with the pitchforks to the Lindner Center and start banging. That's our only hope here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not realistic that he's going to completely gut the thing. There's going to be a couple guys that for sure stay just because it's going to be impossible to just rehaul the entire roster. But it's pretty obvious that a guy like Arrington Page is gone. A guy like Tyler Betsy, or he wouldn't have played Seamus Lukosius for 30 minutes as a senior. He would have given some Betsy run. Rayvon Griffith is going to be gone. You would think he would be playing right now as well. So clearly it seems like those guys are moving on. And then it's going to come down to like who wants to come back, because Dan Skillings is an interesting one in itself because he's shown these flashes. But if you look at in totality of this season, I mean, Jizzle James even was missing for an entire month. When we went 2-8, he was awful. He's flat out bad, almost unplayable at times. And that was kind of the story of everybody on this team. Seamus was good in the non-con and then fell off a cliff. Day Thomas was probably the most consistent guy. He kind of brought it every night. But yeah, I'm sick and tired of Wes saying we showed good fight. The season's over, and
it's 4 years into this thing.
It should be a prerequisite when you're suiting up as a UC guy with the freaking C-paw on your jersey that you're gonna freaking fight when you're in the game, man. Like that. Who cares about fighting and energy? That should be a given every single night. And it's a shame that it wasn't, especially because if you just beat Kansas State and Oklahoma State, we're having a total different conversation. And Wes could have saved his ass from the perception of the fan base by just sneaking into the tournament, even though going into this season, we're like second week of March is a must. Like it's a given. And look at us now. We're talking about the damn crown and having 7 scholarship players even eligible to play in it.
My frustrations with Wes start with the fact that he says I don't make excuses, right? Then he says, but there are challenges that I'd like to acknowledge. You lose Connor Hickman early on in the season, and that throws a wrench in your plans. And Tyler McKinley, we're talking about someone that when he played in Hickman, and he's going to be coming back, it sounds like, really showed me nothing that made me believe, aside from the Xavier and Georgia Tech game, that he could be a high-level contributor at this level. Maybe that changes. Maybe he was injured longer than we knew. And with McKinley, he's a true freshman. Like, don't talk about challenges. You recruited this entire team. You molded. You had years to mold this entire thing, and you just flat out failed with it. It's as simple as that. The proof is in the pudding. The results speak. It's another 50-point effort. It's 32% from the floor, 30% from deep. I promise you, a healthy CJ Frederick, a healthy Connor Hickman, and a healthy Tyler McKinley would not have changed this outcome today. It would have been 76-56. I promise you that.
I do love the spin zone, though. I'm going to start using that like at work. Like, I don't make excuses, but I have ran into a few challenges, I should say. And that's why I missed the deliverables and the Q4 report. Sorry about that, boss. But yeah, at the end of the day, everybody deals with injuries. As far as the grand scheme of injuries, we didn't get the injury bug that bad. I mean, Connor Hickman, I think he was hurt when he was playing. That explains, I'm talking a guy that shoots 40% from three, shooting it over the backboard and just airballing threes, wide open looks. And he already said Day and Connor Hickman are, expected to be back next season. So there you go. There's two guys right there. And then I know you said it on the last show. I think I want Dan Skillings back too. Just because the athleticism, like he's one of those guys when you play Iowa State like you did today, even though he didn't have a great game, he seemed like he could compete athletically with them, and he was scrappy. Like he was getting boards. He was doing some of the little stuff that we knew and loved about Dan Skillings prior to this season. And if he wanted to come back, if you don't rely on him being a core player like we did coming into this season, you can bring him off the bench. I mean, that's a good weapon to have off the bench. I don't care who you are, what team you are. You want Dan Skillings that you can bring in off the bench. I think that's a plus.
You're not asking him to put the ball in the basket. You're literally just saying, use your length out there to affect the game. And you saw it today. Like, he's a magnet for rebounds. Had some tie-ups. I thought he played some meaningful minutes early. The turnovers drive you crazy, but a lot of it has to do with usage rate. Like, the ball's in his hands way too much. You're skipping the ball across the court to Skillings for a wide open three. Of course he's going to take it. Like, what better shot are you going to get 15 seconds into the shot clock than a wide open Dan Skillings three? The answer is nothing. Literally nothing. The Bearcats had a total of 0 buckets. And I think this is factual. Correct me if I'm wrong. 0 buckets after the non-conference where they went inside-out basketball on purpose. 0.
You're probably right. And that's really detrimental for an offense. I mean, that's like, as old as time. That's how you run an offense, inside out. There's no threat in the post. And Aziz did what he could, and we've argued about Aziz. The fan base has argued about Aziz. He's just not good enough to play this many minutes. If you want to have him as, your 7-footer, you bring in for certain lineups, certain rotations, that is it. He can't be a guy that's playing 30 minutes a day when he can't score. He is a negative on the offensive end, and he's not an elite rebounder either. So you got to get some high motor guys, because Dylan Mitchell was kind of the same way. He had like 18 boards against Oklahoma State or whatever it was. And then other games he's getting, 3 or 4. And it's like, dude, put your ass on somebody and block somebody out, because we were getting torched on the boards all damn season. And that's kind of the last thing I would have thought from this UC team. I mean, you could talk about the shooting maybe would be bad, but getting out rebounded and bullied consistently, he's going to have to a lot of work to do. I'd say the interior is the biggest thing in the portal. He needs to get like 3 or 4 big ass bodies in there, high motor, hopefully a guy that can, have some post moves, because we haven't seen it all season.
I just don't believe in anything about this head coach that the University of Cincinnati has anymore. It was 2 years ago. I remember where I was sending the text. I was next to the world's most famous Taco Bell in Pacifica, California, coaching classes at the Orange Theory down there. Amazing. A wonderful relic of time that you didn't know how good you had it until it's gone when you're living down in Pacifica and working next to the world's most famous Taco Bell. But I sent a text and I said, the Bearcats need a bruiser, and the Bearcats need someone that can get above the rim, block shots, finish the lob, whatever. and Wes goes out there and gets Jameel and Aziz. It's almost like he catered that perfectly to me. I said, I need these types of players. And that protocol comes in, and neither of them really worked out truly. I mean, Aziz definitely gave you good minutes. And like you said, if he was just your 7-footer that you relied on to block shots and clog up the lane, he did a good job of that. But UC needed a lot more than I truly gave them credit for the year when they lost Landers Nolly. And then you don't give Victor Locken enough credit to how much he meant to the team, rebounding and blocking shots. I think he had like 6 in a game against Oklahoma last year that we did. And yeah, Nick's coming in and says, shows what you know, Chuck. Here's the thing. Every single UC fan in the United States of America has had nothing but bad takes. We went through this on our group text today and said next year we should have a take meter where we keep percentages, and after every single show, we essentially, alter percentages, because you're probably up there at the top, Houdini. I mean, I'm not scared of Houston and Kelvin Sampson. I think we roll them. That was not a good take. That adds for like -3, but you didn't spew out that many. I gave you some bad ones. The Jizzle James, Ja Morant, not the best. That this team is going to beat you off athleticism, off depth, off, just being bigger, faster, stronger. They're going to win a bunch of games this season. That clearly did not prove to be the case at all, considering they got out rebounded almost every single night. Niehaus had some horrible ones, man. And Lilly may have taken the cake just for believing in this team as long as he did all season, then completely flipping a switch. I mean, there was a point where he told me 0% chance. I said, Lilly, what if in the rare occurrence, Wes Miller is actually a complete dud and we've extended this guy for no reason? I said this all year, so maybe I get the crown. I said, what if this guy's a complete dud, we've all bought into a huckster, and they miss out on the NCAA tournament? Would we fire him? And his response was, there's a 0% chance this team's missing out on the tournament. You may have had the same thought early in the season. So I was the only one that realized that this could be in the cards. So I'll give myself credit for that.
Well, credit to you, no doubt. I will say this: we weren't the only idiots, and the whole country. I'm talking the preseason, the coaches poll, the Associated Press,
the computers,
all of the preseason rankings. Oh my God, don't even get me started on BPI. We looked like the greatest team to ever walk this earth.
We were supposed to lose 4 games. 4 games on the BPI. We had a losing, we had a 52% chance of winning and most of them, and then like a 48 of losing in just 4.
And it's funny because, like the net ranking, and Wes even mentioned it in his post-game presser, we were still 40th in the country heading into the Kansas State game. So the non-con didn't really kill us at all that we played a bunch of cupcakes. Like, we put ourselves in a position from the computer, the Ken Palm. We didn't win the quad 1 games that we should have, but based on how the bubble turned out, we could have easily snuck into this thing if we didn't completely collapse. And honestly, we didn't deserve to make this tournament. This was a bad basketball team almost throughout the season. We had a little bit of a run here and there. Basically, one good win, that BYU win. Feels like that was a decade ago. But through and through, we're so far behind. We are so far behind. Iowa State, this is totally off topic. I hate Iowa State. After what? Tamin Lipsey, I can't stand that dude. He's a flopping foul merchant, and the refs eat it up. They call everything. I don't think we would have won the game without it, but I am now an anti-Iowa State fan.
I agree. Good fan base. I'm shocked that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the foul merchant, did not graduate or attend Iowa State for that matter. I agree with you, though. We need to start up the little rivalry with Iowa State. Unfortunately, I don't think we've beaten them in any sport since we went into Ames with Gary Clark and took them down. And that's what frustrates me when Cats fans say, we just don't deserve to be in a conference this size. We can't compete. We don't have the NIL. We don't have the facilities. Bullshit. Like, this is unacceptable. We're quality control. That's why we do this show. We believe that this show can grow because people give a damn about the Cincinnati Bearcats. They have 40,000 alum every single year. The question becomes, who's it going to be? Is it actually going to be Wes Miller? My answer is no. I can't believe they're going to give this guy another chance in the offseason. But at the end of the day, he's a John Cunningham hire, and it would have to start there because you can't fire Wes without firing Cunningham, who's just been a disaster in my humble opinion. But my opinion means nothing. But like, you're not going to trust Cunningham to hire the next head coach, right?
Let me
You're
charge
not
his
going to.
laptop real quick.
You're good. Throw it in. I'll continue to talk to myself. I've been doing it for the entire season anyways, I feel like. Shows you my listening skills. But to the chat, to the listeners, you're not going to trust John Cunningham to make another hire with what he's done. I mean, he had Deion Sanders sitting there as an option. And granted, I don't know the backstory, but Coach Prime was a much better option than Scott Satterfield. And Coach Prime literally had ties to the city of Cincinnati. Would he have taken it? I don't freaking know. But he was never associated. The entire search as a whole wasn't great. And you end up with Scott, a guy that Louisville fans were running out of town. Maybe this changes. He's only going into year 3, but so far it's been uninspiring. And then the whole Wes Miller thing, man. I mean, it seemed like a real good hire at times. He says all the right things. He has all the right connections. We got Roy Williams coming to the game. He immediately turns the Cats into Jordan. He has, a say in who comes in as the video editor. That guy's a stud. He follows the program, and immediately the content's better. The movement's coming, but it's been 4 years. The movement has not come. It's been an utter failure. It's been a disaster. And I don't even know where I'm going with my points. It's more just a matter of, I can't believe we are expected to trust this for another season. I mean, there's no trust. My trust is completely gone. And going back to what I was saying, we'd love for this thing to take off, and it's not going to take off if the team sucks every year. So yes, we are quality control. We want the best thing possible. And that Coach O that coaches Iowa State, that put together a roster of Lipsey and Jefferson and Montilovich and Dishon Jackson, and they didn't even have Keyshawn Gilbert for most of the game. He only played 10 minutes and they still win. That guy flipped their program in a single year. And Iowa State wasn't a better program than Cincinnati before he got there. In fact, if you look at the history of things, they're technically speaking not a better program right now. And I know that fans of Iowa State and Texas Tech have come at me for saying that. They're in a much better spot. They may be the better program at this given moment, but if you look at the totality, no. Since he's a rich recruiting market that we have not tapped into whatsoever, we get NBA players and let them leave town. Deuce McBride from Moeller being an obvious choice that we had on the show, and he legit said, I would have considered it if Mick threw me a scholarship. No. So the frustrations are coming out. I've ranted long enough. I'll give you the mic to go on a rant, but I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of this city accepting mediocrity and just believing that, oh, we're so small market, we're so poor, we don't deserve to belong. That's an attitude thing. You get out the energy that you put in the world. If you want to be a fucking winner, act like it. That's all I got to say.
Ooh, wow.
Tough guy rants over.
I mean, listen, Cunningham, it's been a failure. I don't care what his relationship is with the donors, the funding, all that good stuff. The football and basketball programs under his leadership have just been flat out ass.
They're
There's
awful.
no other way to say it.
They're
Just
awful.
bad.
We had 30,000 people traveling to South Bend like 5-6 years ago. And now we can't even get 50 people to watch a football post-game show because no one gives a damn.
We've seen what this program can be, and I know that we switched to the Big 12. That by no means is that an excuse to go 7-13, for example. If you get 1 out of 5 years, you have an off year, 18-15. That's one thing that happens to good programs all the time. We're seeing this time and time again. Consistency. This is now the 6th straight season we have not made the tournament. Wes Miller was 1-4 against Big 12 first-year coaches. Okay, 1-4. First-year coaches. How does that happen? Okay, this is his 4th season. You would think this is his 1st season. Like, I'm not seeing any improvement on a year-to-year basis. That's what scares me the most. Like, it's not like he took over the program. We had 2 wins, and then we had 10, and then 14, and then 18. It's like we're right in this, like, just mediocrity and almost below mediocrity. I mean, we're certainly in the bottom, dwellers of the Big 12. We're right in that mix.
Dude, we were the visitor in the tournament game against Oklahoma State. We were the visitor.
13th. We finished 13th. And in one of those teams, it was Colorado who won like 2 conference.
It's literally called the Big 12, and the Bearcats finished in 13th. Let that sink in.
It's not good, man. It's not good, and it's hard to have. I don't care how optimistic you are. Our guy Lilly, one of the most optimistic guys you'll meet. I
He's
kind of
down
flipped
bad.
the script halfway through the season. It was like, how could you be optimistic based on what you're seeing on the floor? And we got a little glimmer of hope here and there, but at the end of the day, in totality, not a good basketball team. Wes is going to have to basically pull rabbit out of his hat in his 5th year to keep his job because that buyout drops drastically. If he does not make the tournament next year, he will absolutely be fired. There is no doubt about that. Cunningham will probably be gone too, unless Satterfield. Maybe Satterfield shocks some people. I'm probably more confident in Satterfield and Brendan Sorsby
100%.
right now because we have no idea what this team will be. Like, we are literally rolling the dice in year 5, which you should never be doing. So we'll see what happens, but
We got
I'm not
Sorsby
feeling
and
great about it.
Royer. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
much better about Satterfield. For all those people out there that had the pitchforks for Satterfield, you better have them for Wes at this point. And I think they do. I think we have a smart enough fan base that realize this is a results-driven business. And at some point, the press conference talk and the I'm proud of our fight and we're going to learn from this and get better next year. You get that for years 1, you get that for year 2, you get that for maybe even year 3, but 4 years of it, and it gets to a certain point where it's like, what the hell? Before the Cats hired John Brannon, they had Rick Pitino walking around the facility, talking to Jaron Cumberland. We saw the pictures, eating lunch with Mick Cronin, crossed legs, Cincinnati polo. He hadn't even been confirmed the head coach of Iona yet. They hadn't even offered him yet. He was literally on the table. And that's one of those what could have been moments as he has St. John's top 5 in the freaking country. St. John's top 5 in the freaking country. That's one of those what if moments that we'll look at for the rest of time. He was sitting there and Pinto said, no, things ended bad at Louisville. Strippers, McGee, no, it's all bad. It was such a no-brainer decision for a program that just needed a spark. That's all we needed going into the Big 12. We needed a spark. And granted, I don't even know if the Big 12 had been announced. I don't think it had at that point. So even more so in the American, you needed a freaking spark, and you had him right there. You saw what Houston did with Kelvin Sampson, damaged goods. Auburn did with Bruce Pearl. That is sometimes what you have to do in life. You have to make the non-conservative decision to go out there on a whim and take a freaking gamble. This university did not do that, and they are paying for it right now because, like you said today, they're going to go play in the Crown. 2 of the most diehard fans you will ever meet in the history of Bearcats basketball spent Saturdays skipping going out. We have social lives to talk about this team. We don't give a damn about the crown that you're getting ready to flaunt in our faces. We don't give a damn, and we promise you every single person listening to the show does not give a damn either. And that is the position that we are in right now because of the decisions that you have made as an athletic department. Graybush Live says that JC John Cunningham took Wes over Eric Martin, who now has South Carolina State in a good position. Who else was in the mix there? I mean, Nick Van Exel, we don't know what he's going to be as a head coach, but I promise you this, he wouldn't have been worse than Wes. Like, he may have been as bad, but there's no worse than what's going on right now where we as fans are sitting here going into year 5, 0 tournaments, asking for the entire roster to be turned over. Like, it doesn't get worse than that. Wes has no ties. None of this just makes any sense. The more that I look at it, a crap hire from the start that had us fooled because we wanted a savior so bad that we were willing to eat up the fact that he said, I'm going to kick Xavier's butts and I'm fired up. That's all it took.
I was just trying to look back because I can't even remember like filling out a bracket anymore with UC, and it just ruins the whole like that first week, that Thursday and Friday, and that Saturday and Sunday. That's just the greatest time to be a college basketball fan, and it takes a huge chunk out of it when UC isn't in there. And I was just trying to think of when the last team was. So it was the 2018-2019 season with like Justin Jennifer and Keith Williams and
they lost to
Hartnett.
Iowa. They lost to your dad's team.
Lost to Iowa in the first round. Nice year,
Hartnett.
Brooks,
I love
Aaron
how you
Cumberland.
pull out the name Hartnett. Wasn't he a red shirt? I don't think he played a game. Him
No,
and
I
Toyambi.
was like, I don't even remember him being on a roster. I had no idea. So yeah, I mean, LaQuill Hartnett, shout out to him, man.
You
But
remember his
that's how
recruiting
long ago.
pamphlet?
Yes. Oh, that was unbelievable. Microsoft Word, somebody in Microsoft Paint put that together like 10 minutes before the game. That's how long it's been, man. That's unbelievable. Like it's truly insane, and it just sucks because the tournament's so fun, and to not even be a part of it when there's 68 damn teams in it, pretty sad. Maybe the only way is if they expand it to 90 teams like they were talking about. Maybe that's the only way we get in. I guess is like a 14 seed at that point. I don't know.
I would sacrifice UC being in that BS tournament to just have the format stay the way that it is. When it comes to the program, I can't believe they're going to accept that this is the way it should be. Losing actually four out of their final 5 games, losing a couple after Wes Miller is announced coming back for another season. All we can do is believe, truly. All we can do is put our faith into Wes that he cobbled together the wrong guys and that in one off season he can flip everything. He's still young. There's still opportunities. I don't believe anymore. And as a fan, that's a tough place to be because as we've stated this entire season with some of our takes, we're completely delusional. We believe in things we should not believe in. And when we don't believe, it's most likely over. And as Coach O from Iowa State showed you, you can flip the culture in a day. The movement's done. You better change up your slogan because the movement is over.
I mean, if this season taught us anything, though, like I'm not going to believe anything until it's legitimately like March 1st. Like I'm not going to say this is a good team in the non-conference. We got to watch serious Big 12 basketball before you can even claim, hey, this team might be something special or even remotely decent at that point. I'd say this team was below average. I guess get ready to get on 3 and run through portal targets and then start looking up guys from North Dakota State and acting like you've seen him play in the group chat and be like, I actually like his size and his length. I like the way he can shoot the perimeter rock and just make shit up because that's what we're going to be doing for, the next few months. Tough spot to be in, man. Really just a shitstorm of a season with a big dump on top of the Sunday as well. I mean, just truly horrendous from start to finish.
Yeah. Poop flavored ice cream with a dump whip topping, homemade dumped whip topping, courtesy of John Cunningham. Yeah.
Raiders should come out with that. Just a shit flavored ice cream, call it the new Bearcat mix or something.
They already have the boldly Bearcat. That one tastes delicious. So yeah, they may have to change things up with the way they're going because no one's boldly a Bearcat right now. We are bashfully Bearcats because it's embarrassing. This is a program that
Graybush Live just mentioned, and we've talked about this. I think he's going to have to. He just mentioned, how about a schedule better non-conference? And you have to assume Wes, no matter what, because it doesn't hurt you, is going to come out with haymakers on the schedule, right? You have to. Right? Like you can't do this bullshit where you're playing, Arkansas Pine Bluff and all these,
None of those games helped you. None of those games helped you. They prepared you for nothing. They prepared you for nothing. Truly. They were throwaway games. Like we knew that after Xavier when they had was it Grambling right before Kansas State? It was like Xavier, Christmas, Grambling. And we both did the post-game show and said, like, what's the point? What is the point of having this game on the schedule, truly? And Wes would go up to the presser and say, this is one of those games where a guy like Arrington Page really finds out what he's made of. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Because none of those, if we've learned anything, it's that you can look big and physical and strong and fast against Grambling and then turn around against an entire power conference and not look any of those things. It gives you false hope, if anything. Sometimes you just gotta lick your wounds early and lose to the best to try and play with the best type ordeal.
You do a couple of those games because he's going to have a whole new roster. So that's what he's going to say. Hey, we want to get some tune-up games just with these guys playing 5-on-5 against a different opponent. You do a couple. You can't have 8 of those, right? I hope he's figured that out at a minimum. We learned that maybe. Maybe that's one lesson we learned this season from our guy, Wes Miller.
All right, so programming notes. You may ask, what goes on with the channel? We've made this a part of our daily commute a couple times a week, and now it's the off season. Where are Chuck and Houdini going? Where are Lily and Niehaus going? We're going to go live when commitments happen. We're not going live for the crown. We'll give you the audio and the YouTube, like update 7-minute podcast of what happened, because there are people out there that are still going to follow. I'm going to follow. I'll at least give you the box score. I'll give you the nuts and bolts, what happened. You'll get a visual breakdown at the very least. But in terms of like live reaction, I as a fan can't do it. If we get to the championship and the crown is so awesome in Vegas to where we're feeling some type of way, maybe our dormancy ends and we pop out with a show. But as of right now, I don't have any desire to talk about this team ever freaking again. So that is my stance on live shows after the tournament games moving forward. But every single commitment that breaks, we're going to be the first to it. We're going to be the first to it. We're committing to that. Lily, Niehaus, myself, and Houdini will be on it right away. And we'll see how this team shapes up, at least on paper, heading into next season, because that right now is the biggest storyline surrounding Cincinnati basketball. Wes is returning. Who the hell is this team going to be next year? We will have the entire updates throughout. Plus, Lily is deep into football. He's got a problem, Houdini. Does he not? How deep he is into football coverage right now?
I've never seen anything like it. He's got like a spreadsheet with every target we're looking for. These high school kids, he's like showing up to recruiting trips in, South Dakota right now, meeting 17-year-olds, seeing who wants to come to UC. Yeah, he's got everything and more that you would ever want if you're a UC diehard. So we'll be updating you throughout the offseason, no doubt about it.
Graybush Live says, are you guys going to be live for portal exits? Maybe. It depends on how big the portal exits are, but one thing is for sure, we will definitely at least have the content for you on YouTube and the audio podcast. So subscribe. This thing's hit your algorithm and you're not subscribed. Subscribe right now. But we'll obviously have that when spring football comes around. We're going to have some content there. Lily's going to kind of take charge and be our football guy. You and I will be hosting. Lily will be kind of the analyst because he is knees deep into offseason football. I'm knees deep into offseason basketball. I'm knees deep into the football season. But the offseason has been something that's always been a little bit tough to keep an eye on for me. There's just a lot of moving parts and roster spots. So Lily's going to be our expert there, and the channel will go on. I mean, we went live last year after the Kelseys did a podcast at Fifth Third Arena and brought in Man on the Streets, Tyler Dugan. So that's what we're capable of here at Chatterbox Sports. The podcast doesn't end.
No, the show goes on. Whether Wes Miller is just going to keep just absolutely abusing us mentally or not, the show goes on. It's been a fun season as far as the podcast, the chat. You guys have been awesome. It's been super fun. I wish the team didn't just suck. That would have helped us a whole lot. I think this thing could have really taken off. But we got a good little community getting built here. We're going to keep going. And hey, I guess it can only get better.
Here's the thing.
Should I say that? We hit rock bottom.
No. Here's the thing. It can only get better because they say this in news. When it bleeds, it leads. If Wes gets fired, if there's a coaching search and this thing, there will be more people interested in that offseason than this current offseason, because I do think people have just kind of tapped out. They're like, all right, show me, Wes. But
well, I mean, we saw it this season, when we went on that massive losing streak, when we started 2-8, all of a sudden we had a ton of people in here, and it was just the hate watching, which is great. We'll take all the views we can get. But there's clearly still a passion with this fan base, man. It's crazy. Even with 6 straight seasons now, not making the tournament, dealing with the Brandon era, now the Wes Miller era, the passion is still there. They're still selling out the damn arena. So it's there. It's out there somewhere. We just got to figure out a way to win some basketball games. And it's got to happen soon, right? Just based on statistics, it needs to happen.
Remember how much damn fun this show has been when the Bearcats win. Trey Scott on live for Xavier. I mean, come on. Who can forget that? My equipment breaking a season ago as I spilled beer all over my computer after Simas Akoshes hit a late shot. The TCU overtime game where we went live thinking there was like 10 seconds left in the game. We ended up being live for 20 minutes before the show started because it went into overtime. We've seen countless things on this program. We're here to bring you everything Bearcats related, win or lose. There are brighter days ahead. I promise you that. We yell because we care, and that is how we end the season. The same way we started it. Our faces are a lot longer. We've lost some hair in the process. I don't know how you lose any more hair, Houdini. You've gone full Vin Diesel on us, but somehow you found a way.
Hair?
But yeah, it's falling out at this point.
The storm may be intense, but we will see sunshine again, folks. I promise you. That's a fact.
Don't tell me how rocky the sea is. Just bring the ship in. The uniforms are back, and someday this beautiful, beloved program will be back. But Chatterbox Bearcats will be with you probably in like a week when someone decides they're leaving and the Bearcats have a commit. Christian Wolf, $2 on the way out. He's been donating to the Wes Miller buyout fund quite a bit. He says, is Sean Abayev our only hope? I'm not going to put too much expectations on him. I will say this. If you're not going to have a legitimate program, at least get some players in the NBA. You and I are both fans of the association. We can't look at any teams and say, hey, they got a Bearcat. Not a single one active right now. So at the very least, give me someone that, can get to the league and is our version of a Tari Eason or something like that. But in terms of what he's going to do next season, he can shoot. He gives you size. He's a freshman, but hey, he's something different. At the end of the day, anything different is welcome.
At a minimum, he's keeping the fans' interest. Everybody wants to tune in to see him. We'll see what he can actually do as a freshman. You can't rely on a freshman, but he does look like a skinnier Michael Beasley with that southpaw three, man. I'm telling you that right now. He looks a little like Michael Beasley. But, yeah, again, guys, he's, the 27th ranked player in the class. We're not even talking a top 10 guy. But this offense could have used him because, hell, I mean, we're shooting 30% from the field consistently. Hopefully, Sean Abayev can give us a spark on that end. At least we know will be fun to watch. That's a good.
He's ranked higher than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was, and he's one of the faces of the association right now. So never say never, but again, we'll see once he puts on a uniform and quite frankly, forget just puts on a uniform when the non-conference is over, because we're not making any proclamations. I mean, I think another one to Lily's losing percentage. I think he said Betsy had a chance to be a one and done NBA guy after Ohio State or early in the season. He was very high on Tyler Betsy. I just have to shout out Gray Bush Live. He's been here for every single show and give him a little heckling on the way out. He says, oh no, we can't become Calipari. I just said that UC doesn't have a single player in the association. I'm not worried about a one and done. That's the least of our issues right now, Gray Bush Live.
We got too many guys in the NBA, man. We got to get some real four-year college guys on this roster. Maybe we'll start winning some games. Yeah, no, it's sad because all that stuff helps getting guys in the NBA. Like, James Harden was just recently saying he's dropping a bunch of money to Arizona State for the NIL fund.
Steph Curry's dropping 8 digits. Steph Curry's dropping 8 digits to Davidson. You watch. Davidson's going to be legit in like the next 5 years, and they're going to be legit because Curry's funding the way. Let's get our Steph Curry. It's possible. Let's just – maybe it's Abayev, but let's do something, because right now nothing about this program is enjoyable, and that is why we cracked a Voodoo Ranger, not just a Miller Lite to celebrate Wes. We went full juice IPA.
I'm going to go grill out. I'm going to go grill out and dump a 40-ounce in my backyard and just, shovel the dirt on the season, man. That's it.
That's it. We will see you probably very soon. Peace, everyone.